Great.
Yes.
Are you nervous?
Do the actresses show up?
They're here.
Okay, good. Oh, great.
I got good news and bad news.
Had an opportunity and thought I could go get paid.
All right, so here with Derek Jarr. Derek, how you doing, buddy?
Great.
So, Derek, we've known each other since, 2008?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and doing real estate together, we met. I was doing some lending. You were doing some investor remodels and flips. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
All right. Cool. So I just wanted to invite you down here, have a little session with you, and just kind of get caught up. You know, we were talking previously about kind of what to expect in here and how to game plan this thing. And I think just like a lot of things we do, not a lot of game plan and a lot of shooting from the hip. So you ready to go?
Yeah, for sure. Let's let it roll.
Great. So Derek, why don't you just catch us up? I know that when we met in 08, you'd been in Arizona for a little bit, but you're originally from North Carolina. Is that right?
Yeah, I was born in Wisconsin and grew up in North Carolina. Moved out to California in late 90s and then to Arizona in 1999.
Okay. So what was from Wisconsin to North Carolina, you were pretty young, right?
Yeah. I was 5 when I moved to North Carolina.
Okay.
My mom got a job and moved there.
Okay. And what was so you moved for a job and then you went to school in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, grew up in North Carolina, grew up in Chapel Hill, so a lot of people said you like Duke, and we hate Duke, so big Tar Heel fan. And yeah, grew up, my parents got divorced when I was really young, and my mom was a nurse and worked a lot, and moved to North Carolina for a new job, and ended up playing a little bit of football in high school, and fortunate to go play in college for a little while at Appalachian State. So our claim to fame was beating Michigan in the Blue House, Big House, whatever they call it up there.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then got the entrepreneurial bug at a young age. At 19 years old, ended up dropping out of college, and my parents weren't the most excited that I left football and left college, but I decided to jump in and try out the old entrepreneurial game.
Right. So what? So you had some success, obviously, playing football in high school. Why Appalachian State?
Well, I probably want to go someplace else. When I was in high school, the movie Rudy came out, so I had those aspirations of going to South Bend and painting have a golden helmet, but wasn't quite that good. So ended up going to Appalachian and walked on. And it was a smaller school at the time. We didn't have the notoriety that the school now does, but. So I picked that school.
You created the notoriety.
Definitely not. Yeah, I was, what do they call it? I was All-American Scout Team, I think. Yeah. So,
nice.
which is one step above practice dummy.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. So in high school, any entrepreneurial aspirations? I mean, what were you doing for work? Obviously going to school, but playing football, doing that kind of stuff. Did you have a job? Were you trying to figure out something entrepreneurial, or could this come up later in life?
I was always trying to sell something. I remember as a young kid, I actually told my boys the other day, I remember having the Kool-Aid flavor packs and putting sugar in them and bringing them to school and selling them to kids in elementary school. So nothing too harmful, just a little bit of sugar for elementary school, which was fun. And then, selling baseball cards and different things. But I was always looking for ways to make money and things I could sell through high school for sure.
Yeah, teachers loved it when you brought that sugar in, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, they didn't know. At least I didn't think they did.
What was the baseball card you made the most money on?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was right around the Bash Brothers. So Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire, the Bash Brothers.
Yeah.
So it's probably one of those guys.
Yeah. So that's right around the time Bo Jackson comes out. He's got the baseball bat behind him. He's got the pads on, the black and white, something like that.
Oh
right?
yeah, that was legendary.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I grew up around that same time. I think I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 42, coming up on 43. How old are you?
Yeah, I'm 1 year older than you.
Oh, you're older.
Yeah, 1 year.
Thank God.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I just look older.
Yeah. It's the beard.
So awesome. So you're investing in baseball cards and sugary water. You get into high school, you get a little football pop, and you go to Appalachian State. Yeah. And is it the normal college life? Is it going to school, going to parties, playing some football, or are you starting a grind at that point? Kind of what's your mindset, or where's your head at there?
Well, I got lucky. I found sports. I was watching sports with my dad growing up and everything. And so in high school, I feel I had some discipline towards the sport. I wanted to be a celebrity maybe at the high school level, and so I grinded. I was a gym rat. I'm not the big. I played offensive line, so I'm about 6'1" on a good day, and so I lived in the gym and lifted a lot of weights, and then went to college, and just kept working on trying to be good at what we're doing. But I realized early that college is a whole different level. I mean, it's a business for real. It's serious. And there's not too many 6-foot offensive linemen in the NFL, so I decided to take a different path from there.
Yeah. So how long did you actually stay at school?
3 semesters, probably only 2, but physically I was there for 3.
Yeah.
I think actually my 3rd semester, my biology class, I think I went like 4 or 5 classes. The first one, I think maybe the second one, like the 3rd test, and then I was kind of done after that. So.
And so where is Appalachian State? What?
It's in Boone, North Carolina.
Boone.
Daniel Boone.
Oh shit.
Yeah, Blue Ridge Parkway, Blue Ridge Mountains. So, yeah.
All right, so you're in North Carolina. You're in Boone, North Carolina, small town, I'm assuming.
Yeah, very small.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get through a year and a half of school, realizing it's not the right fit for you. So what's the next steps?
Well, kind of going back to the entrepreneurial bug, I actually got introduced to direct sales, kind of network multi-level marketing, and during my freshman summer of college. And so I saw the big pyramid, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you can like sell things and make money, and then recruit people to sell things and make money, and you can make money." And so I kind of bought into that hook, line, sinker, I think, a little bit, and that's actually what led me to drop out of school. Was I saw an opportunity to work in the multi-level marketing industry, and met a guy who's probably one of my biggest mentors, or first mentors in business. Didn't really meet him directly because this company was so big. This guy's name was Bill Gould, and I'll have to show you some old video clips, but this guy was just a magician. I mean, he was just magic from the stage and everything. But in all sincerity, was really about like what the American dream is about, and what does it mean to own a business and have financial freedom and control your own destiny. And I don't know why, but at 19 years old, it just kind of hit me. And so had an opportunity and thought I could go get rich. So I was like, well, school will always be here. I'm gonna go try this out, so I dropped out.
What were you selling? What was the first thing you were selling on this MLM?
Yeah, well, so the first deal I got into was a long distance phone company deal. You'd sign people with a long distance phone company. We had landlines, and you get like a half a penny over every minute they talked or something, some crazy thing like that. And then I got into something that I felt was more durable goods of like lotions and potions and weight loss pills. So we were selling weight loss pills and all natural hair care, skin care, and had a water filtration line. So this was, this would have been in 1996. So think about, that's a long time ago, 24 years ago, but water filtration, there was like hardly even bottled water back then.
Yeah.
I was trying to convince people that they needed water filtration and they should lose some weight and use all natural shampoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you're 19 years old, you're still in Boone, North Carolina doing this?
Yeah.
And Bill Gould,
That's right.
Yeah, so Bill is he's in North Carolina, he's in Boone, or is he a traveling?
No. Yeah. No, sorry. Yeah, he was like he was the wizard. He was on top of the pyramid for sure.
Gotcha.
He was based out of Las Vegas, but he had houses everywhere, throughout the country.
Yeah, and you saw yourself being the next Bill.
Yeah, for sure.
And how does Bill identify you?
I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
He doesn't know I exist.
So you saw Bill. You saw what Bill was doing. You're like, I can do that. I can be that. And this is the method to do it. So I'm going to run down this path as hard as I can and figure out how I hit this hole as hard as I can. And I'm going to go crush this piece of it. And you took that route.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're doing that, and then you mentioned that you left North Carolina and you went to California. Why California? Where did you go? What was in California? What drew you there?
So I had to stop along the way, but I started out in Boone, North Carolina, in this multi-level marketing, and then ended up going to Wisconsin. Back to Wisconsin, where my dad lived in my dad's basement. My what they call your sponsor or upline. He was so successful, he was going to come help me be successful in Wisconsin. and he was so successful he actually lived in my basement with me, or lived in my dad's basement with me. That's
Right.
how that should have been a clue that maybe he wasn't as successful as I thought. But I was believing the dream for sure.
Yeah.
So then I ended up moving out to California because I had opportunity to work with a different guy who I thought was more successful.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned early on that your mom and dad were separated. So you came from Wisconsin to North Carolina with mom, and dad stayed in Wisconsin.
Correct. Yep.
So grew up your formative years kind of with mom, and then said, hey, okay, I'm getting out of school. I'm going to go back to Wisconsin, spend some time with dad. How was that transition?
Well, I think my mom was ready for a break or something from me after I dropped out of college to sell weight loss pills and water filters. She's like, okay, so my son's at college. He's playing football, but he's going to give all that up to go sell weight loss pills and water filters.
Right.
So she was probably ready for a break for me for a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's where I went.
And were you new with dad at that point? I mean, like, was dad involved through this time, or is this kind of a new relationship you're fostering? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, my dad and I were really close, even though I didn't live with him. I spent the summers in Wisconsin, and funny, we're both as parents. It was not too long ago, my stepmother was telling me about the summers, and I would come in like a hurricane, because she had a daughter, but not a son. And I was like, you know what? Now that I have children, my mom got the whole summer off from her son.
Yeah.
I bet she really enjoyed her summers. And my stepmom was like, I bet she did. So I had a great relationship with my father. And so I was glad to be able to go, spend some time, be around there, and try and figure out my way.
Yeah, and what did mom and dad do? Mom was a nurse?
Yeah, so my mom was a nurse. My father was a salesman, many different ways, many different businesses and stuff. And I remember young, during the summers, he was a traveling salesman, and he sold packaging products and different things. And so I would go on sales calls, driving his car with him. And I saw him make his sales early in the morning, do his hustle, if you will, make some deals. And then he kind of took the rest of the day off and was around the house with me. And I was like, you know what? There's probably something to the sales thing, because that freedom aspect of working hard, making your money, and then having some time freedom probably is where some of that kind of originated from for me.
Yeah, only because I know you so well. That piece of working so hard half a day or through the part of that didn't come for you till way later in life, though, right? Your work ethic is probably second to none. I remember working with you and getting emails at 2:00 in the morning. We're working stuff through. So you may have seen it, but I don't know that you implemented it until maybe after you got kids later down the road. Is my assumption here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was always something to chase. It was something to hopefully get to it. And it's funny, you get to you fortunately have some success, and then you realize maybe there's a little bit more, and then maybe there's a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I remember when we met, and I didn't have children yet, and or shortly after, and remember you telling me when I was getting ready to have twin boys, hey, it's all going to change a little bit for you, and it sure did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So dad's an example of how to hustle. Mom's taking care of you. You got two great parents, two different locations. You got a nice childhood growing up in a little non-traditional way. Dad sets the bar and says, hey, look, hit some success, and you two can have, you can support the life you need, the kids you have, and also have some time to enjoy. And that was kind of the pinnacle, or that was kind of the goal maybe, or the first example of.
Yeah, interesting. In my house I grew up in, I had a great stepfather, so I was very fortunate. I had great two sets of parents, right. And my stepfather was a general contractor, a builder. And my mom worked in corporate America in nursing, and she worked a lot. And my stepfather, kind of same thing, actually, in his own business, got up early, did what he had to do, and had some time freedom that my mom didn't have. And right. I remember seeing my mom not being real happy about that, actually. Yeah. And some moments that were a little tense around the house about how hard she was working and he wasn't. And I was like, well, good for him. He has a business, I guess,
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to.
Yeah, so all along you're kind of getting formed. You're getting formed as a small child and seeing kind of what your lifestyle is, which I think is interesting that you as a kid can kind of see that, or at least even now recognize that back. Which, we all know that we're forming our kids now, kind of wondering what they're receiving from us. So maybe there's some hope for us and our kids, right?
Yeah, hopefully we don't screw it up too bad.
Yeah. So that's cool. So you mentioned that on the way to California, you had your eyes on the prize with a new mentor, a new program, a new kind of thing to chase. What was that?
I just think, hey, California, the good place to go, I guess, and so trying something new. I was 20, wasn't quite yet 21, yeah. And packed up my stuff and drove across country and Just I think, I love to get in different settings. You know me, kind of a lone wolf. I can give me a backpack, drop me off somewhere, and I'll figure it out. So just the new excitement of learning and discovery and working around some different people.
Yeah. What part of California?
Sacramento, actually.
Beautiful place.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it was fine. But I went from Sacramento in September, I think, in '97, and then I quickly moved to the Bay Area, and where I proceeded to do some couch surfing. I moved around to about 5 different cities, I think, in the Bay Area. And Keeping this was like when the .com rage was going, and money was just falling from the sky for everyone in tech. And here I am trying to sell weight loss and water filters, and tell people they're going to get rich doing it. So it was interesting.
Yeah. So what's the transition out of that? Like what was you're in California, you're couch surfing. At any point are you questioning where you're at? Are you questioning your decisions to sell or to be an entrepreneur? Like what, you mentioned, the mentor coming and sharing a basement with you and looking back at that as kind of an eye opener. Like, are you having any stress at this point, going down this entrepreneur journey? Are you questioning college? Are you questioning the decisions you made, or are you full steam ahead, just rocking and rolling?
I definitely had some questions about, like, because I wasn't having a lot of success. I mean, it was a financial struggle. I mean, at 20, 21 years old, like, how much money do you really need? I knew every different flavor of ramen very well, and every dollar special at every fast food restaurant, because, and even when we did make a little bit of money, we spent it almost faster than we made it. So, I was borrowing money from mom, Bank of Mom, and I knew I got to a point where I was stressing her out, and it was causing friction in our relationship. And I actually remember where she's paid my car payment. She's like, "This is the last one I'm paying," and I was like, "All right, well, I need to get my shit together here because I can't keep living off Mom forever." So, certainly. But I always believed that I was on the right path. I always believed the good intentions. I believed that in time I would figure it out if I just kind of stayed the course. But certainly wasn't easy. I mean, I wanted to quit a lot, but I just knew that eventually it would pay off.
Yeah, it's interesting as a college age student. When you have your change of like $1.06, and you can get cheese on your burger at Jack in the Box, you're like, this is gonna be a good night.
That's right.
Yeah. So and moms, great. Yeah, thank you, moms. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So now you're getting cut off. You're getting a little more of a reality check, which I think a lot of us go through in our 20s. Of like, all right, we're trying to find our way. We're trying to create our social life. We're trying to figure out who we are, what we believe in, what drives us, what we want to be. A lot of confusion in that, I think, is at least for me in my 20s, and trying to dial that in. Even though I had success in sales early on, like I was selling computers and I hated it, making more money than all my friends, paying for all the parties, doing all those things, but not really enjoying what I was doing. But understanding that this way of life, this hustle, this grind of putting deals together was what I enjoyed doing. I just didn't like selling computers, and in my early 20s and trying to figure that piece out. So here you are, you're couch surfing. All these guys are making tons of money in this dot-com boom, and you're looking at yourself, and mom's cutting you off. What's going through your mind at that point?
Well, a big thing about the position I was in is like, I was trying to make money myself, and then I had a sales team of people who I had recruited, and I was trying to, and help them make money. And so when you're going through your own struggles, and then you're seeing, your team, so to speak, who've bought into what you've sold them, this dream of success, which is very similar, I think, to actually when you start a business and we have an idea, whether you're a restaurateur or whatever the business is, like, it's probably easy to look at the business owner, yourself, whoever it might be that has a business, and be like, oh, they got it so easy, or like, oh, it's all great. But I remember being like, people looking at me like for the answers. And I'm like, do you have the answers? Because I don't have the answers. But trying to act as if I did, because what else do you do, right? You got to just keep trying to figure it out. And then shortly after that, I moved to Arizona. There's an office opening up in Phoenix. And same kind of situation. I heard of a guy, or I knew about this guy from Colorado that was moving, Mark. He ended up being my best man on my way. You've actually met Mark before. Yep. And I didn't know how much fun I would have working with Mark, because Mark's a really fun guy. But I knew he was successful. And again, I just want to keep surrounding myself with people who had success, and hope I could like pick up some things that they were doing well and copy them.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, you're one of the most creative guys that I know in the sense of structuring deals, structuring opportunities. I don't even want to use the word joke, but I call you like the crystal ball because I felt like during our time, you always had that next day. You always kind of knew what was coming and were able to lead the team that you had built down the path of success. So, when you're trying to have those conversations with your downline guys, is that what they're called? When you're trying to have the conversation with these downline guys that maybe have given you money or bought a product or however that situation works, was that do you recognize that you have that creative piece? I mean, is that something you're self-aware of, that you're a little more creative or a little more I don't know, savvy, but just like you come at things at a lot different angle. Do you recognize that in yourself? Do you see that today?
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse for sure.
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse, which I think is pretty consistent with most people's skill sets. It's a blessing and a curse in some ways, but.
And how are you seeing that as a curse? What do you mean by that?
Well, like our friend Brian has told me several times, like, Derek, you like to make things complicated just for the sport of it, and it just doesn't have to be that complicated, just to like entertain myself sometimes. So
Right.
creativity is great, but some of the best advice I've gotten is like, keep your business simple. If you want creativity, if you want excitement, like go jump out of a plane. But most successful businesses are very methodical and systematic. And an entrepreneur can make their business too creative sometimes, and it's hard to follow. It's hard for your staff to follow. It's hard to duplicate. It's hard to scale. It's fun, but there's lots of things you can do for fun.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, just you saying that, and I think one of the things I love about our conversations, you say so many things that just ring true back, and you look at your own life, or you look at your business, and you look at how you structure everything, and it makes so much sense to you. But then you have to explain it and re-explain it and kind of unravel this web of twists and turns that you think are going to make you stand out or make you different or going to create your special sauce. And a lot of times you're right. Just making things a little simpler, simplifying things would make life a little easier. So getting some of that creative juice, getting that conversation, that word track, getting the teams to follow you and to trust you and to buy into what you're doing, almost faking it until you're making it type deal.
Sure.
Interesting time for you. Then you come to Arizona, you meet Mark. What are you guys pitching now? What's the next pitch? And are you still just focused on this multi-level deal? And is this the only thing you're seeing here? Or are you starting to read or see other opportunities that are starting to catch your eye? Like, where are you at in time?
Yeah, so still network marketing, multi-level. That was about late 99, 2000. Ended up meeting my wife, Lisa, actually. So this dates us here both a little bit, but we ran ads in the newspaper. And that's how we recruit our sales reps. So when there used to be ads in newspapers, much less.
Sure.
So we used to run ads, and because we sold like health nutrition products and weight loss, we'd run these ads that were like fitness, model types, and work with an international marketing company to help sell these health products. And that's a nice benefit. There were some pretty good looking people that came in. So this girl walked in one day, and she's now my wife.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So she was the model, not you.
Yes, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Not me, for sure.
And so black and white photo of Lisa in a newspaper with a weight loss pill or some sort of.
No. Well, we read the ads in the paper to recruit salespeople, so it wasn't like she was trying to sell the products, through the ad or anything like that. But anyway, she walked in because she answered the ad in the newspaper.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So she sees your ad, she walks in, and you're like, hey.
Yeah. I was like, I got an opportunity for you.
Let me show you something.
That's right. No, actually, so it's funny. She actually answered the ad in the paper of Beth, I think, who my friend Beth as well, at one point maybe. But
yeah, of course.
Anyway, so and then she didn't get involved in the business. She didn't believe in my sales pitch. If she was here, she would say she was probably quite annoyed by me and turned off. And like 2 or 3 months later, she answered the ad in the paper again, and me being the passive person I am, I'm like, hey, you're still looking for a job? Like, you ready to get started yet, or are you gonna keep looking for a job? And anyway, she didn't sign up for that either. It was so weird. I can't imagine why. And we ended up running into each other randomly at a bar in Old Town, Dos Gringos, if you remember that one, in Old Town Scottsdale. And I think she said something to the fact like, do most people think you're an asshole when they first meet you? It was something like that.
And what was your answer?
I was like, well, I thought to myself, like, I love this girl. Like, this is going to be great. Anyway, so, and then, I don't know, we're kind of got off track there, what we're talking about, but...
Yeah, but do
Yeah.
most people think you're an asshole?
Probably, yeah.
And why do you think that is? Is that part of the curse of this creative gene, or I mean, is it your I mean, you're one of the most driven people that I know. You're always thinking about new ways. You're a big heavy thinker or a tall thinker, or you know, you like to get up above things. Do you think that gets in your way sometimes with personalities? Is that why that you may have rubbed her the wrong way? I mean, is it just you're just grinding so hard to get somewhere? Like, what do you think triggers that?
Well, I like to call it I'm passionate.
Passionate, yeah.
I'm passionate with an opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I tend to kind of beat to my own drum. I'm a contrarian. You know, I like to go the opposite way of where most people are going. It freaks me out to if everyone's running in, I want to run out, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know where that really comes from, but so I think I can be probably polarizing to some degree with people because we're like even when we started 7 years ago building houses, someone said, Derek, you know, like, when you go into these communities and you just start like knocking down houses and building new ones, you might want to like just like introduce yourself to the neighbors and like tell them what you're doing. And I'm thinking like, well, they don't care about what I'm doing. Like they don't even know who I am. They don't care. I'm just going and building a house. And
Yeah.
It's going to be a good house. It's going to help their value. So
I'm helping them out.
Yeah, I'm helping them, right? Or
They should come say hi to me.
Yeah, and I don't know if that really comes from that as much as it just is like, well, I'm just going to go do my thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, with success comes responsibility, and I've underestimated the importance of that. I've just kind of gone and done stuff, and the world doesn't always like very receptive to that sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, listen, man. You know, your way of going the opposite of everything that's been going on. For me, coming to work with you in '08 was such a refreshing eye opener of like, wow, like if I can run a different path than everybody else and find an opportunity, which you helped a lot of us learn how to do through the way. It's worked very well for me since then, and I think that's one of your strong suits is just being able to see that, you know, that different path that not everybody else is taking, and we'll dive in a little bit more here. But so you're working with Mark, you're making the pitches, you now found the girl of your dreams.
Yeah.
You guys are off and running, and you're doing multi-level still. Where are you at? What are you selling? How's it going with Mark? Like where are we at now?
Well, I was getting burned out. I mean, I believed in the product for sure. I really did. I believed in entrepreneurism. I believed in being in sales and residual income. But I saw that the reality was that most people who were buying the ticket, weren't going to make it to the end of the show, so to speak. And that really started wearing on me, you know, because I didn't want to like lead people down a path and then it not work out, and you know, you take that on yourself, just like you do with probably, you know, employees and staff. Sure. And salespeople that we manage. So I was starting to get a little bit anxious. We went to open an office in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I remember Lisa saying, she's like, I love you, but I'm going back to Phoenix. I hope you come soon. And so that was in 2001, just shortly after 9/11, actually. I was doing so well at the time. I was sleeping on an inflatable mattress, and it had a slow leak in it. So I don't know what time it was, but usually about halfway through the night.
Yeah, slower, longer or shorter than 8 hours, right? Shorter.
Yeah, sure, for sure. So I would like wake up in the middle of the night, like, okay, I'm like half on the floor now, and I'm like, yeah, I should probably start to figure out something to do differently than what I'm doing, because this probably isn't working as well as I'd like it to. Yeah. And so I moved back to Phoenix, and that was in 2002, and I ended up going out to start looking at some real estate. Saw some of those infomercials, late night infomercials about no money down real estate. Bought a couple books, and shortly after that, got my real estate license, and then away we went. Yeah.
Interesting. So, what kind of books are you buying? You got particular authors you like to read up on, or what was your entry into that?
At that time?
Yeah.
Well, so in network marketing, it's a lot of self-development, which I think is great about that business. So I read Think and Grow Rich at 19 years old, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie's book. Those are like two of the biggest, the first two books I read at 19 or 20 years old. And so just kind of working on your mind and getting your mindset right. But I think in 2002, I don't remember that. Sure. Carlton Sheets, I think, is his name. He had like this no money down real estate program.
Right.
I actually ended up joining the ASRIA, Real Estate Investors Association, and just started networking with some people that were doing transactions. And again, trying to find people that had success that I could learn from.
Yeah. So 2001, 2002, we're talking 20 years ago, roughly.
It's crazy.
These guys in this room aren't even 20 years old. Or,
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So you're now in real estate. You have this background in hustling and trying to put deals together and trying to recruit people to help you get to what you need. But you also have this strong understanding that there's people out there that can help you, mentor you, and kind of shorten the curve a little bit to help you get up and running, right?
Yeah.
So what you're now in? You're not a traditional real estate agent ever, I'm assuming. No. And you're now going down the path of how am I going to invest in real estate, and how is that going to help me push my life forward and give the residual income that you were looking for in the MLM. How is that going to push me forward, and how's that going to provide for me and my family moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and was there for listen, you and I got into distress, short sale flips. You started building homes. I did a lot of remodels and flips as well, and we've always kind of been in that real estate space. But I know over time what I've liked or what I've gone after, or how I understand real estate has changed and evolved. Was there some sort of asset class, or was there some sort of part of the location? What were you looking at for, like, what was the direction? What was grabbing your eye? What was grabbing your attention outside of just trying to put deals together? Like, what were you looking for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always been in single family housing, and so I remember I went to open house and I met my first broker there, and I was like, well, maybe I'd sell real estate, because again, it was the sales aspect of it. But I really wanted to buy a house, fix it up, and sell it. Both my mom and my stepfather, and then my father as well, were doing that. So I kind of saw that growing up.
Gotcha.
It's nothing revolutionary, right? I mean, tons of people have done it. But so I knew I wanted to do that. So I was like, okay, I'll get my license. I can find deals. I can list my own stuff. And that was really the premise behind getting my license.
Right.
So I bought my first deal off the MLS. I structured it where I got I negotiated $185,000 purchase, but I wrote the purchase contract for $190,000, and I got $5,000 cash back at closing. So that was my first creative kind of financing deal. And I remember, this was August. It's actually August 2nd of 2002 when I bought my first house. So 8.5% interest rate, and I think I needed like $15,000 down at the time, which I was about $15,000 short. So my buddy Mark, he went to one of those strip mall loan places, kind of for like 27% interest, and borrowed $15,000, and that's how we got started and bought my first house.
So help me understand. So I'm gonna make an assumption here that when you wrote this contract for $190,000, there's some explanation to the seller. So you'll say, hey, you're asking $185,000, I'm gonna give it to you, or whatever the price was, right? And so, but I'm gonna write $5,000 over the top of that to get a little bit of cash back in my pocket. And now you need $15,000 roughly to close on this deal. Are you going to a private money lender? Or are you going traditional route? How are you closing this deal?
No, that was just a conventional financing loan at that time. It was state income, state assets, whatever all that stuff was. No income verification, no asset. What are those, NINA loans or whatever they call that? I don't know.
Yeah, no income, no asset.
Yeah. No job, no nothing. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Actually, interesting enough, my car got repoed 3 months before that, and pretty much got evicted from our apartment we were renting. So
yeah,
good time to buy a house.
Yeah. Well, you need a place to stay.
That's right.
Yeah, car's gone.
Yep.
So you're under contract to buy this deal. Somehow in the crazy finance, it's what's wild to me, man, is that like during that time, what year is this? 2000?
2002.
Okay, so I got in 2004 doing lending. Traditional lending is when I got into real estate, and I remember I was at the MGM Grand. Tony Robbins is putting on some sort of convention within a mortgage convention. I get a call. I go upstairs. I think it's Mandalay Bay. Which one did you can see the airport? It's Mandalay or MGM?
I think so.
Anyway.
Maybe both.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the strip, and this guy goes, I flip cars for a living. I go, okay, great. He's like, I want to buy a house in Flagstaff, and I flip cars for a living. Okay, great. What about your income? What about your assets? What about your, verification? He's like, well, I don't really have any of that. I can't prove my income because it's all cash. I don't really have any down payment for this deal. but I want to buy this house. And I remember ABC Mortgage funded that loan, 100% financing, zero income verification, zero asset verification, and gave this guy 100% funding on a deal. Like, will that ever exist again?
Oh, I mean, I hope so. Because it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun part on the way up. A mess to clean up now.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Yeah, wild times, man.
Wow.
You know, coming in my mid-20s and being able to sell that product. So coming out of selling computers, and then now I am, you know, toggling back and forth between refinance or purchase, depending on kind of what the market was doing. But having no clue that this money was kind of fake and it wasn't real, and this is how wealth is built, right? Like, you put no money down, you buy a rental property that's negative cash flow, and then in a few years you'll sell it for a profit, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, a little bit off track, but just a wild time as we look back and kind of a self-reflection of like kind of where we've been and where we're at today and kind of what's coming, and you know, who knows what tomorrow's going to bring. But so you buy this property, you put 15 grand down, you get $5 grand cash. How do you fix the house up? What do you do with it?
Well, so Mark and his girlfriend at the time, Amanda, moved in with Lisa and I, and when you close on a loan, you usually have about 45 days or so if you time it right, or however it was. So I was like, well, I think it was actually closer to 60. If you close maybe on the first, then you can almost get 60 days for your first payment or something. So I was like, well, I got 60 days to figure out how we're going to make this mortgage payment. And even though they were going to help, none of us had jobs. Again, this was all a good idea at the time.
Of course, yeah. That's how wealth is created.
That's right. So jump and then pack your parachute on the way down.
Right.
We just started working on the house, and back to my mom. Thank God, Home Depot had a credit card with no interest for like 6 months or 12 months, whatever it was, and I think we got like a $30,000 credit card for Home Depot, no payments, no interest, and away we went.
No way.
To fix it up.
Yeah. So you fix that house up, you sell it, you make some money on it?
No, actually, didn't sell it. We tried to sell it, didn't quite work out.
Is this one still in the rental portfolio?
Well, actually, I think you may have sold it for me not too long ago. No, but it became a great rental for a long time. Yeah.
Right.
Barrel. Remember we were talking about property on Barrel?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
85028.
Yeah, that's right.
So, all right. So now you got a few bucks. Now Mark's got a 27% loan. You got a credit card, and you got a great rental. Did you live in the property ever?
Oh yeah. We lived there for about a year.
Oh, you did. Okay, cool. So you're living in the property. You got a place to live. Got a place to live.
Oh yeah, pool, palm trees.
Oh yeah, you're balling.
Yeah, brown wood paneling on the walls. I mean, we painted that white though.
Of course, yeah. Cream, Swiss coffee.
Yeah. The brown paneling kind of like bled through a little bit. It's great. Yeah, I call it vintage. Pay extra for that.
No doubt. Yes. So you get a little taste of it. At least you have a place to stay. You and Mark are hustling. You're on the grind. You're trying to figure out what's going on. And you pull the trigger on another deal. You get a taste of this. It wasn't really a win, but you got a place to live, so maybe it is. How do you keep driving in this thing? It doesn't feel like you didn't go make $100 grand on this deal. Like what drives you to pull that trigger again?
Yeah, well, home equity line of credit. So appraisal went up, values went up, market went up. I was able to access $50,000 home equity line of credit. Again, still without a job or income. And then we went and bought the second one. A guy, Wally Hardy. Mm-hmm. He was a listing agent on a foreclosure that I bought just down the street on North Lane. Yeah.
85028.
That's right.
Yeah.
Get closer to the mountain.
That's it.
Yeah. Moving on up.
That's right. Yeah. So you buy north, and then what happens?
Same thing, moved into it. I mean, the great thing about real estate, if you own or occupancy, there's a great tax benefit if you live in it for 2 years, right? The first $250 is tax free if you're single, $500 if you're married. So I just did again. We fixed up a house, and literally I remember that deal was pre-foreclosure, and not knowing anything different, right? So the value of being naive and not being too smart, because you can't kill your deals because you don't know any better. Mm-hmm. I remember their loan was Washington Mutual. It was a short sale, but this was in 2003. And I literally hand wrote the warranty deed. I met them at a bank, had them notarize it, and then I just recorded it myself. Because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. It's like, I don't know why you need a title company or title insurance.
Yeah, who needs to pay that?
Yeah, who needs to do
Extra
that?
cost.
Save on those fees.
Yeah.
So that was that deal.
You still have that one?
No, we sold that one.
Yeah.
And we sold that one in September of 2005.
Gotcha.
That worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're hucking and jiving. You make a little bit of money on North, and you're in this game now, right?
Yeah.
And are you starting to? Because what I'm trying to figure out is like, at what point in time do you start to find this, like, you're obviously leveraging creative financing to some degree in the sense that, hey, the banks were pretty loose with money. We all had access to it to some degree, but the desire or the ability or the stupidity or the whatever to pull the trigger on a deal like that with no job, no experience in the deal, like, you're moving forward now and you're starting to see, okay, I'm honing in on this a little bit. Like, where's your head at? Where are you at with this?
Well, probably around 2003 or early 4, I knew a couple guys from California, actually from the multi-level business, who wanted to invest in Phoenix. And so I was just kind of like their point man on the ground here and find up deals. I would manage the rehab, remodel, and then help sell it. So it was the first time I got some capital partners. Well, first time it was early on, but got some capital partners, started doing some deals. And then that's the time where I discovered the pre-foreclosure list. And I met some people that were knocking on doors at pre-foreclosure. And that's when my whole eyes opened up, almost even bigger than when I saw the pyramid on the board about getting rich selling water filters.
Right.
It's like, okay, so you mean to tell me there's a list of people who can't pay their mortgage and the bank is going to sell, and I can just go start talking to them and see if I can buy their house. So anyway, so that's why I just started knocking on doors with people in pre-foreclosure. And the guy I met gave me the list. I was like going to Mesa and Glendale all around. And I remember the first couple times I went, I think I talked to one person. And I don't know for sure, but I think it was in summer because I think I remember it being hot. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm not doing this shit because people don't want to talk to me. I'm driving all the way around. I didn't have a lot of money yet to pay for gas really, and I was struggling. So I was like, that's not for me. And I don't know when it was, but maybe 6 months later or something, I stumbled across a subscription list that I could get myself. And I go, oh, I can actually get the list of homes like in my neighborhood, 85028. Mm-hmm. And so I just started knocking on doors around there.
So it's funny because I know you from our experience, you're the 85018 guy, mm-hmm. right? Because that's how we kind of grind it together. But the finding one little pocket to work or one area, that's always. I guess we're now starting that strategy to some degree, and we'll see kind of how that is for you now. But that was out of convenience? That was out of, hey, I know the streets, I don't have a lot of money to be spending, or time? Like, that was a strategic decision to do that?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It was just convenient because it was right there. You know, like, let's not make it harder than it has to be. I'll just go like drive a couple streets over and knock on these people's door instead of going across the valley. So
these you're getting a list of people that are in pre-foreclosure. There's a big red flag saying, hey, I need help, and you're knocking on a door, and what kind of response are you getting? I mean, for the average man to walk up to a door and say, hey, listen, knock, knock, knock. Yeah. I know you're about to lose your house. I'm Derek. Yeah. Like, how's the feedback on that? What's the conversation like? What's your heart doing? How's your word track working in your head? Like, are you nervous about it? Are you trying to soften the blow? Like, what's it like walking up to that door?
Well, we probably need to do another one of these for all that because that was some crazy times. So that was in 2003, 4, but you get everything. First of all, walking to someone's door and knocking on it, you never know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then you're not really there to talk about something exciting. And then sometimes they knew that their house was going to auction. Sometimes they didn't because they hadn't been notified yet by the bank. Sometimes the wife answered and didn't know what was going on. So sometimes people came to the house in all kinds of different mental states. Sometimes people came to the door clothed, unclothed, all mm-hmm. kinds of stuff going on. Yeah. So it was wild for sure.
Yeah, and so you're there to solve a problem for them. And well, you're there. You're going to solve a problem for them because they're going to lose their house, right? And so they need an exit. At this point in the run, is there equity in these deals?
Yeah, well, yes, and there was definitely short sales though as well too, because 2003, 4, the market was just taking off here in Phoenix. Okay. So there's definitely some equity, yes, but most of the deals I did early on were short sales.
Oh, they were. Yeah. Okay. So you get to the door, you have conversation, you guys come to terms on the purchase, and are you negotiating your own short sales at that point?
Yeah.
You are. Yeah.
So, handwriting information sheets. What's your name? What's your social? What's your loan number?
Yeah. Getting real close to these people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now you're calling the bank saying, hey, I'm the buyer on this deal. This house is going into a short sale, and you're negotiating with the bank now at this point as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you come to an agreement with a seller for $100,000. You present it to the bank, and what does the bank tell you?
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm trying to think back. Like most of this first short sales I did were on second liens.
Okay.
I remember knocking on this guy's doors on Rovine, and I was like, hey, my name's Derek. Just stopping by, talked about the house, and I might be interested in buying it. He's like, yeah, you do want to buy this? I'm like, well, what does this guy? What does this guy know that I don't?
Yeah.
I mean, it's his house. And he's like, well, I owe this much, and then I have a second mortgage, and then I have a third mortgage. I'm like, well, this sounds fun. This sounds creative, right? And so not knowing any different, I just kept talking to him, and I was able to short the third and the second, and then I wrapped the first mortgage and took it subject to.
Yeah, you just gave me like I'm starting to sweat when you said third mortgages, because I totally forgot about trying to negotiate a first, a second, and a third until you said that, and how brutal that is.
Yeah.
So look, I'm just going to slow this down just a little bit, because I think it's interesting when you're talking about shorting and wrapping deals, and for the average person listening, what does that mean? So if you have a second and a third, what does a short mean for that, and what's the process or the consequence for the seller? Like what do you have to do, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like what we did when we worked together in 08, 9, and 10 and whatnot in short sales is sometimes banks get over leveraged, and if the house value obviously dropped, right, then you make an offer that's less than it's worth, and the bank has, like a second position bank has to decide, okay, if I could take this offer, or if the house goes to foreclosure, what is someone going to pay for it? Usually a lot less than market value, because they're investors, they're buying sight unseen in most cases. So the second lender is like, all right, well, do I take my chances and risk getting totally wiped out, or should I take the bird in the hand type deal now? So
yeah, what's wild that what I learned immediately with you is that, like, okay, so the first kind of dictates what's going on, right? The first is going to dictate how much money they're willing to lose,
yeah,
and they're also going to dictate how much money the second and the third are able to get. So, I mean, we've seen deals where the second lender is at $100,000 and they're getting $2,000 to go away.
Yeah.
And the third, I mean, they're getting pennies. And the issue is if the third or the second wants to protect their position, they have to take out any position ahead of them. Right. They have to cure that ahead of them and take it out. So they're really in a tough situation. So when you go and you basically, just for a hypothetical, you wipe the second and third out for $2 or $3 grand, and now there's debt on the property that you wrap, right? You're now saying, hey, keep that debt in place with the seller. The seller keeps the debt in place. You're going to wrap that, pay the mortgage for them, and take ownership of the property, right?
Yeah.
How many of those have you done?
I don't know, 100 or so.
That's it?
Yeah. Well, if you don't have money, or you don't want to use your money, it's best to use someone else's.
Yeah. And do you think, like, again, with the creativity of the way you think about things, like you've been able to generate a lot of income for yourself and for a lot of people that work with you by being creative, and it's an interesting position to be in, to always kind of think about how am I going to stretch my dollar out when you don't have money, and how am I going to stretch my dollar out when you do have money, and not kind of succumbing to the fact, well, I can do it, so I'm just going to spend it, but I can do it, and how do I maintain that creative piece, right? So there's a lot of guys that wish they could do 100 deals, let alone 100 creative deals like that, which I think is interesting. So when you wrap this deal or similar deals along the way, you're fixing up some of them and selling them. You're keeping some as rentals, or you had one strategy versus the other, or you're just kind of hucking and jiving at this point.
Yeah, so kind of like the Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the 4 different quadrants. Of the sole proprietor, the self-employed versus the person that actually has a business. I was just a self-employed guy. I'd given myself a job finding deals, and as I started writing letters to homeowners and knocking on doors, I was looking for properties to remodel. But what I found is there's a whole other world out there where you could source these deals for other investors called wholesaling, as you know very well.
Yeah.
And I remember going, okay, do I want to remodel this? and calling someone, and they said, hey, I'll give you $10,000 if you'll assign me that contract, which I didn't really know what that meant. And they showed me. I'm like, okay, so I don't have to paint this house. I don't have to go to Home Depot. I don't have to get a loan. I could just make $10,000. Okay. And so I just started finding more deals than I could remodel or wanted to. And really in like probably late 04, early 05 is when I kind of stopped remodeling. A couple here and there, but I started wholesaling. And that was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
So you're making your way through. You're making your way through this. The market's going up.
Yep.
And again, from a traditional lending standpoint, you just see paper. You see a refinance come in. You see a purchase price come in. You never really see the property. You don't know if values are going up and down. You just get an appraisal, and it's one's in Mesa, one's in Scottsdale. You have no idea really what's happening in the street. At least I didn't when I was doing it. So I don't really know what the market was doing 05, 06 when it's going up, and you're still finding distress at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
Really?
There's less of it, but
Yeah.
again, like literally, I think you could buy a property in 2005 and like in 60 days resell it for 20 or 30 grand more. So then it's like you get a contract and like, well, this might not work today, but give it a week or two and it might be a deal. Like I remember like trash can deals was the joke, where someone would call looking to buy something. Like, you got any deals? Hold on, let me get the trash can. Yeah, this wasn't a deal last week, but maybe they want to buy it this week. And like literally that's what was happening during that time.
Yeah, wild time.
Wow.
So you're having good success. You're doing some remodeling. You're doing wholesale. You're providing opportunity for your family at this point. Are you stable on your feet? And you're like, hey, now I am who I am. Now I have direction. Now I have a pretty good idea of what I want to be or what excites me, or I'm in a field or a price point. Like where are you at mentally now that you've kind of been making this journey from sugary water to assigning deals and negotiating wraps? Like it's a pretty far journey here. Where are you at now?
Yeah. Well, so 2002 when I first got in was just whatever. 2003 I made a little bit of money. 2004 I made almost $500,000. In 2005 I made $1 million. So like it happened really fast for me.
Right.
And a lot of that was wholesaling deals. A lot of that, I was doing some remodels. So it all happened like sudden wealth out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I guess out of nowhere, but I paid some dues along the way, maybe.
Of course, yeah.
And then, the market was good. And so then your buddies start saying, hey, what's going on with real estate, or what are you doing? And I want to do what you do. And I was like, no, you don't. You want to knock on doors, people in foreclosure in August in Arizona, and have them yell at you? You sure? Our good friend Brian, was one of the first guys who we met because he sold us a Mercedes. And I started bringing on people really in late 06, early 2007 to try and build a sales force again of people and try and get into that kind of B quadrant versus being a sole proprietor to actually that B quadrant to build some infrastructure.
Yeah, which is funny because this is where I start to come into your sphere, and it's funny because I also bought vehicles from Brian.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting point in time. It must have been 07 we started working together because it was pretty early on when the market kind of topped out. But it was an interesting point in my life, and I don't know if you know the story, if I may have shared it with you, but I'm thinking I'm big swinging dick. I'm driving Mercedes. I'm 29 years old. I'm not making $1 million a year, but I think I'm living in a $650,000 house, and I got several rentals that are not cash flowing, but I can sell them next year for 50 grand pops because I got 0% down on my financing as well. Just not understanding really how to invest in real estate. It just was, this is how wealth is built, because if the banks are giving this money out, it must be how smart people are doing it, and why everybody's not doing it, I don't know. Yeah. Even though everybody was doing it, which is why the market was doing a lot of what it was doing. But so Brian, I'm getting my teeth kicked in as the market starts to fall apart, and A-paper borrowers, the ones that had the 20% down and had the 750 FICO scores, weren't able to get funding. All of a sudden, like a faucet was just turned off. And I remember walking somewhere with Brian. He's like, I got this guy Derek. He's been buying cars from me. Like, he's an investor, and I'm gonna go work with him. And you should come too. I'm like, what are you guys doing? He's like, we're doing short sale flips. I'm like, what's a short sale? Yeah. I had no clue what a short sale was. And Brian's like, well, you get the bank to take less. I'm like, how do you even get financing on that deal? Like, I'm trying to process this with what I know. And he goes, listen, all you gotta do is give Derek $2,500. and he'll teach you how to do this.
Yeah.
So now we're back. Now Derek is making good money for himself, and now Derek still has this multi-level marketing gene in him, right? And he's looking at guys like me who are trying to figure out life. And I think in '07 was an eye-opener. And it's funny that we're here now talking about this particular point in time because maybe there's some similarities for what we're about to go into.
For sure.
And I remember Tracy and I, my kid's mom, were going our separate ways. Chris Lewis, who you know as well, got me a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo at Central and Northern. My mom gave me $1,000 for the deposit. Chris bought me $367 worth of groceries at Costco, and I took my clothes with me. And I had a 2-bedroom condo with no furniture, no kids' clothes, no plates, and a fresh start as a dad with a mortgage business that went to zero. Yeah. And when Brian says, "Hey, all you got to do is give Derek $2,500," I'm like, man, that's all I have, and how am I going to do this? And I remember pushing off on it and thinking things are going to be okay, and then biting the bullet with coming on board with you guys and signing up to the program. And when I came to you, you already had you had already had some success with a team. You had Beth was working there, Mark was working there, Brian. You were also doing some stuff in Vegas. I remember flying to Vegas to help you sell information. Maybe is that what we were doing?
Well, we did trainings. Yeah, we did some trainings for that mentorship program, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So we're doing training on how people can spend $2,500 to be mentored by Derek, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe I think we're doing trainings actually on how to actually do real estate transactions.
Okay.
But it was people who would. So I totally forgot that whole portion of our chapters together. Yeah, we should use that somehow. Anyway.
We will.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right, Lex?
Apparently, I'm gonna be writing a check back to you. Maybe
You already did.
Yeah. Okay.
You gave me my check back.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And I'm at the time you told me, and I don't know if this is true. You can be honest today.
Yeah.
You told me I was the only person out of 252 people to get the check back. True or false?
I have to say I don't remember.
Yeah. Did anybody else get their money back?
You don't
remember?
I don't remember. But why did I
Let me have that story.
Why did I give it back to you?
I mean, I'm taking it because I hustled hard for you, man.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure.
That was a hard check for you to write. I know.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, I'm sure I benefited in many different ways from all the deals we did. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. So now you're twisting up a little bit. So now you've made great money doing real estate. You've struggled through this multi-level piece, but obviously there's something about that you like, and maybe that's where this creativity and tying things up and making a complex structure went. Because what we were doing, I don't know if you invented. I'm sure you didn't invent the whole process to it, but we had a very complex structure on how we did deals, based on how to tie these short sales up, negotiate them, and then resell them. So you now are building a team up now, and you have a nice office space at 85018. And hey, there's plenty of deals to be had right here. It's a great zip code. It's always going to bounce back. Was bounce back quicker. Was a lot of things that I remember you sharing with us. And what's it like now to go from selling water filtration systems and weight loss pills and trying to get guys to buy into that, to now you've made money for yourself. I remember the first house that we met and was a great house for a young guy to be in. For me it was like, wow, like this guy's getting after it. So you've been able to set you and Lisa up, and now you have this team. Which, look, there's a lot of guys on that team that are still doing good business today.
Yeah.
You're able to recruit some really good talent at that time, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you were able to acquire that talent. But what's it like having that team now, and now trying to go back to teach and replicate what you did, and then also have success doing that?
Well, I think it's what I always had hoped for in the multi-level marketing. It's what I believed in my heart. It's like finding good people who have desire, who are driven, who are teachable, sharing with them what you've learned that people have shared with you. And because I believed in it so much, because it had worked for me, there was no selling. Like, I'm actually, I don't really think I am a really good salesperson, but when I have conviction, I'm as good as they come, I think, about it. And so, because you have that belief in it. And when I don't believe in it, I'm terrible, I just don't believe in it. So I think, going out and saying, okay, I'm going to recruit some guys, I'm going to bring some guys in and teach them what I'm doing. I kind of was looking for that next phase of growth, and how to do through teaching others. Before, we were catching the tail end of that market up, '06, '07. And you probably remember this, but I remember being in Colorado with Mark, and we were selling prepaid foreclosure leasebacks to investors. And these investors were getting 100% financing. And they had a tenant in place, and they had a lease paid for a year. So it was a great deal. And great deal of the time. And I remember it was like fall of '07, or something, or summer, or whatever. And state income went away. And I was like, well, there goes that business. And I met an attorney shortly after, and that's when I learned about the short sale flips. So you're always open for ideas. You're always looking like who's doing what and what are they doing, and trying to learn. But yeah, I mean, having a group of guys, some of which were my friends before, some of which became my friends, and like us, and making money and seeing, like I always tell you this. I mean, I was in the right place at the right time, took advantage of it, capitalized on it, but I was able to attract a lot of great people. Because the market was down on people, such as yourself, and I think as we sit here in 2020, we're going to see that same thing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting time to see some great talent come through, some great opportunities within this distress for sure coming. How many states were you operating in?
I think we were in probably like 7 or 8 at that time. Something like that.
Yeah, so you're in 7 or 8 states. My recollection is I think you had 250 people at one point sign up for the mentoring program. Maybe 25 or 30 of us were really out hustling and getting after it. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So what was some of the struggles? I mean, you're like, I'm scared to death to leave Phoenix and go do a deal and try to learn new markets and contracts and regulations and so forth. What was it like trying to manage, 250 people that think they deserve all the time that you have? 25 people that probably deserve more than the other guys, trying to underwrite deals, trying to underwrite strategy, trying to manage those personality types in different areas. Like, what was that like for you?
It's fun.
Was it fun for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was. I mean, I think again, the growth and the excitement of the growth, and trying to figure out what's next, and I don't know, just trying to discover new ways of doing it. I mean. Some people obviously didn't do anything with the information that they got, and some others made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year doing these deals. But it was a crazy time because in '08 and '09 we did about 300 short sale flips, and it was a time where things were going really well for us, and you almost felt bad because you knew a lot of people were struggling. So I think just being able to have a team of people that were believing in what we were doing, working hard to make it happen. I don't know, it was very rewarding. But again, it's like you don't know any different. Like I had never gone to Oregon and tried to buy real estate, so why wouldn't I go to Oregon and try and buy real estate?
Yeah.
I had no reason not to.
Yeah. So let me ask you, because we were across from the coffee shop, right? Hava Java, right?
Yeah, 32nd and Canada.
And I remember for whatever reason, it's flip-flops and shorts, right? And we'd walk over to Hava Java, and I remember that we were making money during that time when like you said, a lot of people weren't, and a lot of real estate agents were not making money as well, right? We went from this big uptick to distress, and it was an interesting time of like, hey, like I'm proud that I'm making money. I'm proud that I'm able to find a way to earn money in this deal. But also, we took a lot of heat from the traditional real estate agents because we weren't traditional real estate agents. And matter of fact, we weren't even real estate agents. But it was an interesting time and trying to learn that. You said in that short period of time we did 300 transactions. That's not right. Yeah. So. We get through that time, you create some good relationships, you're up in 7 states, things started changing with the banks, regulations started changing, it got more and more complicated to kind of navigate this waters. Real estate agents who didn't want to collect financial documentation, didn't want to not get paid on both sides of a deal, started coming back in doing short sales, and you made a shift. Mm-hmm. Right, and you decided, hey, everybody's going to get licensed, and we're going to go with a traditional brokerage at this point, right?
Yeah.
What was the thought process behind that?
Well, a couple things. You're right. We took a lot of heat, and I think we had a lot of inquiries, a lot of questions. I learned a lot of things about myself I didn't even know were true from what I heard people saying about us. There's a lot of, there's tons of distress in the financial markets. And, you had these banks that were just operating like the Wild Wild West, just trying to be reactive to what was going on. I remember being on the phone when we got shut down as a buyer with Countrywide, who they said they wouldn't approve any short sales by our company. And I remember having the audacity to call a loss mitigator, head of loss mitigation for Countrywide, and be like, why can't I buy houses with your loans? And he's like, well, we just don't know what you're doing, Derek, and so we're just not going to approve any. And I had the audacity to say, well, I'm just going to start another entity and just submit offers under their name instead. Because you just figure out what to do next. But I think what happened is the market was shifting, and they came out with things where, we were flipping these short sales. Everything was disclosed. Everything was in black and white in the contracts. But people felt like we were getting over on someone because there were such losses by these banks. And even though we weren't, we were just coming in and buying the properties. We didn't make the loans and we didn't borrow the money. I think I just kind of saw the writing on the wall. We had a really good run. I believe that you don't have to be wrong to be wrong, maybe. And I really didn't want to be made an example of. So I said, you know what? Let's start buying some of these short sales and remodeling them, and that's what we did in 2010.
Yeah, and so just to kind of wrap this little piece up, but like we were simply going through finding properties in distress, buying homeowners more time in their property with that, and educating them on not depleting their 401ks and their credit cards and everything else, buying them time in their property, negotiating a deal with the lender to get a buy, and then reselling it to an end buyer who could come and show up to our property and close in 30 days like a traditional transaction, when 8 of the other 10 properties had to be, what is the bank going to accept? How long is it going to take for them to approve it? Will they approve it or not? And because of that, because it was so different, it did create a lot of havoc for all of us, in the sense that people just didn't understand. And I think that's a big testament that, like, I have a similar story with GMAC putting my name on a piece of paper saying you can never buy a house from us again either. And it's like, we're doing that much volume, and you guys, like, to get a letter with your name on it, like, I was pretty proud of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, made it.
Yeah. So look, so you're now making a shift. You obviously had a good run at that. You're the entity that you were doing that with. You shifted. You went to a traditional brokerage. What's a guy like you doing with a traditional brokerage?
Well, I think that the goal at the time was like, okay, hey guys, like the market is changing. Whether we should have had licenses or not. I mean, I did, but most of you guys didn't. I think we were operating within the statutes, but it's like it was certainly edgy to say the least. So like, hey, we're all brokering deals, so let's go out and let's start brokering some deals. And so that's when we shifted to the traditional model of real estate.
Yeah. So how long were you doing that?
Not too long. I probably 2010, 11, 12, 13, so about three years probably.
Yeah. And you're building a team of traditional real estate agents, which was interesting to me. That's about the time where you and I ended our run together. Yeah. I didn't want to buy into that change at that point. Right. I still wanted to kind of keep running the grind. Did a little bit something different, but it was hard for me to swallow. Like, hey, all these traditional real estate agents are running our names, shooting arrows at us. What we used to say, shooting arrows at us all the time. And now you have to go build a team of these guys. It was interesting kind of dichotomy, I guess, for me to watch you do that. So you put 3 years into that, and then at some point you make a shift, right? Like, what's...
Well, we started, so that there's a brokerage side because we had agents that were finding deals and helping us sell deals. But really, I mean, that wasn't making me any money. The money I was making was because we started remodeling houses in 2010. Mm-hmm. And so we raised capital. We're buying bank-owned foreclosure, short sales, and we were remodeling them, cosmetic remodels, and then selling them to end users in the market. So we did that 10, 11, and 12. Right. And then in 13 is when we started developing and building new construction.
So you're using the brokerage as a lead generation tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you got X amount of agents running the streets, creating relationships, bringing opportunity to your database, and saying, okay, I'll take that deal as I will buy that deal.
Right.
Right. And so they're now your lead gen tool.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so a lot of stuff's going on. One thing we kind of passed over, and you touched on earlier, was just the you and I and another guy that we worked with at the time. We had a conversation around the water cooler. You were having kids coming, and I mean, listen, you're still an intense guy. I mean, you're one of the most intense people I know. And that's why I was halfway joking about the asshole comment earlier, because you're so intense that if people aren't running that speed, or it's my experience with you, working with you, if you're not running that speed, you're going to get ran over because Derek's going fucking 150 miles an hour, but I was a little bit ahead of you as far as having kids, and I remember telling you, like, hey, when these kids come with, you and Lisa were having kids, when these kids come, it's going to have a different effect on you as a human, as a person. And it's interesting, not too long ago, you and I were talking, and you'd mentioned, like, hey, look, what's important to me is coaching my kids in football. What's important to me is the bicycle rides and going to the beach with my kids. Like, it's a different Derek today. And, I'm wondering, because shortly after you had your kids, you and I kind of went our ways for a little bit, business wise. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, I think in our worlds, like, we're either working together or we're not, and it just is just kind of that one track of, like, getting after something. What was that effect at that point? I mean, did you recognize it as soon as the kids were born? Did it take a little bit of time? Like obviously you've transitioned, you're a very involved dad. I mean, early on did that happen, or is this, as you're working through the brokerage model, like, I mean, is your work life starting to change? Because again, man, like, I would see you at the office 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and we'd go home, and then I'd be getting emails from you at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, it was nonstop, relentless. Like, you're still is an intense guy, but you're a little softer when it comes around now. So, like, when did that start to happen, or do you recognize that happening? Do you know?
Do you know? I think kids change all of us, or they bring out maybe they bring out things in us that maybe were overshadowed by other things, and I try and live a very intentional life and focused life, and this isn't a dress rehearsal, as they say, right? You get one shot, I guess, depends on what you believe in, but so I don't know. My kids, as you know, they're just amazing, and I think I was fortunate to have some success, and I came off a really good run in 08, 09, and continued on. So when I had kids, I remember someone telling me when we got a night nanny for our twins, oh, it's so nice if you do that for your wife. I'm like, my wife? I did it for myself, So we were fortunate to be able to do some of those things, and so I was able to kind of take my foot off the gas a little bit to spend that time with the children, with the babies at that time, and because that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be around them as much as I could.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So look, man, you've shared that you've had some, you were couch surfing and evicted of your apartment and lost the car, and then you have this incredible run over. It probably didn't seem, in retrospect, relatively short period of time, but there's probably a lot of challenges and struggles along the way. We come through 08, 09. I think in 10. I think the last day of 2010. Was that the, like, was it the last day of the year, like, hey, let's get licensed and get this brokerage? It was something like that, I remember. But
09. Well, maybe we coasted for a little while through. But I mean, 2000 into 2009 is when I started the brokerage. Yeah, maybe it was end of 2010. We kept running a little bit. I don't know.
No,
it was 09.
Yeah, 09 was it. So I came with you for 7. I think we figured out it was like 18 months.
Okay.
So yeah, I remember it being like, towards the end of the year, it was going to make this transition, and me transitioning as well. And so far during this time, like I said, I'm well aware of the arrows you took, but it was success along the way. And you were out in front, and you did take a lot of heat for all of us. And part of it is because you were the strategy in the mind, and crafted this for us and gave us these tools to make this money, which puts you in the crosshairs. But then you're in the brokerage piece. They're doing lead generation for you. You're still doing remodels. I know you sold the brokerage. At any point, are you having stress or struggles at this point yet? Or are we still on this crazy uptick, or are we hitting any kind of hurdles at this point yet?
Well, I think from a real estate standpoint, I think we were lucky to transition to the remodels, and the market kind of found its bottom, I believe, in somewhere in 2010 or 11. I don't know what the actual statistic is, So remodels were good. People were trying to find their way in the world again in real estate, and we kind of took off and running in that matter, and they're really good actually. The remodels were really good at that time, so then when I started getting developed in 2013, that kind of world changed a lot, I had I guess this was it was probably in 2013. I had got served with a lawsuit from some salespeople that worked with us, and we had a compensation dispute over a bonus structure. And it was a big awakening in my life in a lot of different ways, because you feel like you right, and you know what your intentions are, and you know why you did what you did, and sometimes for the good or for the bad, right? If you can be true with yourself.
Sure.
And this was a moment in my life where everything I did it for the right reason, and I did it out of because I cared, because I wanted to do the right thing. I learned that your intentions when it comes to legal proceedings don't really matter. What matters is what you documented, and so I went through this time period feeling like I was under siege and being attacked through this financial lawsuit that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. Challenged my marriage, stressed me out, stressed my business out. And but I look at that today. I'm able to look at that today to say, why did that happen for me, and what did I learn out of that? And I'm happy to say that it didn't turn out the way I wanted to. It was devastating financially. It was a 7-figure lesson for me. I try and laugh that not everyone gets to say they went to that conference of losing $1 million in a lawsuit, but I actually got to say that, and I didn't even get a T-shirt. But I'm fortunate for that, because I think it prepared me in so many ways and woke me up to what really was important. Because when things aren't going well, and you kind of equate your how good your life is or your success to success or financial success, when you get challenged by that, you have to look within, and you have to do work to say, what really is important to me and what really is working well, because how I've defined myself isn't working well at the moment. Yeah. So lots of growth came from that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting, because I know that at least my perspective of it is, I feel some commonalities in the sense that, like I mentioned it earlier, but like, we have our head down, we're grinding, we're trying to work, and inevitably you're pulling the people that are closest to you, and you brought a lot of your friends in from the past, and I think a lot of us became tight during our times together, right?
Yeah.
Like, our 18 months together was a good run. We've maintained a friendship, but inevitably we kind of do our own things, and we stay in contact. But you've always kind of been tight with the crew you had, so that had to be a tough. I would imagine it was a tough mental piece for you to have your business life kind of mixed with your friendship life, and then now this thing is kind of on its head a little bit, right? Like, that's probably a mentally challenging spot from a couple different angles.
Sure, yeah. Well, I think that they say, like, don't mix business with pleasure, or whatever the saying is, and I certainly those lines crossed through most of my life, starting from multi-level. I had a lot of friends that were involved in that with me, and then in real estate. So it was certainly a challenge. You feel all the emotions, the victim emotions of feeling like you're betrayed or you're being wronged, and if you choose, which I choose to now do, is choose the path of ultimate responsibility. Is like, well, how did I create this? And not in like in a judgment, like what did I do wrong necessarily, but how did I create this? How did this happen? And what do I want to learn, and what do I want to do differently moving forward? Because there's no reason to kind of look back with regret or judgment about it. It's more about just learning from it. So that's what I chose to do.
Yeah, and I think, listen, man, I think that's one of the great things about life as we kind of evolve as human beings, is like we do create what's around us and the life that we live, and being able to take responsibility for our part of anything is the only way we can learn and I guess process it out, because you really can't control anything else besides yourself and how you act or react. So definitely had some of those moments myself, not at the cost that you had, but emotionally.
Yeah.
So now you're transitioning out of that. You've gone through some hard lessons. Because I know you as a human being, and I see you as a dad and as a husband. I'm sure it was a challenge with Lisa and even staying present with the boys when all this is heavy is going on. Did that, and you mentioned there were some struggles. I mean, obviously, there's some stresses there were some struggles with the relationship, but did it inevitably, or did it strengthen the bond with you and your family, and kind of reinforce how important that was to you, and just kind of be another kind of notch of like, all right, I've created these two little lives with this woman, and I have this piece over here that's solid and stable and loves me regardless of what's going on out here, and regardless of what they're saying about Derek here, I get to come home to this. Like, was there some wins in that aspect as well?
I think now looking back, I mean, I think there's things you've built on and learned, but there's also in my personal relationship, like in anyone's personal relationship, like things are going to happen, and like you said, how do you react to them? And a buddy of mine is challenged right now in his relationship, and he's like, oh, I wonder if she'll change, or I wonder if she'll thinks I'll change. And I'm like, I don't know if it's really about changing. It's more about understanding and acceptance and being aware of what is. I think trauma or events that lead to trauma can connect people, and that vulnerability around that. Brene Brown's one of the favorites about vulnerability, and that true connection happens in those moments. So it binds people together. I think we're all very resilient people. Human beings are resilient, and you can look back at things that happen in your life and like, man, that was crazy. Like, how did I get through that? Right. And that was one of the biggest moments for me in my life. Like thinking back to like, how did I get through those times? But during it, right, you're like, well, I have a choice. I either get through it or I don't, and I'd rather get through it. So, today I think, as a couple, as parents together, as husband and wife, we look at that, and it's probably a little bit of PTSD that we have, and question about some of our judgments and our decisions. So there's still some stuff that we work on as a couple for sure today.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that I admire about you too, is you're always looking to improve, and I think that's it's a good trait to have, right?
Yeah.
So now you've made millions of dollars, you've bought hundreds of homes, you've helped a countless number of investors get their start, and create the ability to earn money for themselves, and I think that's a pretty strong legacy from my vantage point of it, regardless of the time of the market or whatever else, like you were able to generate a lot of income and a lot of ability to earn for a lot of people. And now you got your teeth kicked in a little bit, and we sell the brokerage, and we're off to doing some development, right?
Yeah.
What triggered an investor, entrepreneur to go become a contractor?
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually. I think this is where that creativity can be a curse a little bit. So it was a natural progression, kind of very organically, to go from paint, carpet remodels, as we call them. We did like a master bedroom addition, leave one wall up, to then ground up, to then land assemblage. But in 13, we're like, okay, well, we don't have to just be the investor developer. We can also start a general contracting business, and that way we can save money, and we can do it faster, and we can do it better. And more isn't always more, it turns out, 7 years later. I ventured in out of the investment business and actually into a manufacturing business, if you will, in the sense of hiring people with processes and systems to not just do a sales transaction or investment of an acquisition and disposition, but actually manage like budgets and purchasing and insurance and quality, craftsmanship and warranty and all the things that happen in the crazy construction business out there. So I think it came from just trying to control more, probably,
right,
and thinking that more was more.
Right. You love control.
Maybe. Probably too much.
Yeah, so you built 180 homes in 7 years,
Yeah.
right? Learned a lot of lessons along the way. I just want to back up real quick. When you're owning the brokerage and you're still putting deals together, you're still leveraging creative financing throughout the way on that. Yes? No? or you a little more traditional?
Yeah, we got more traditional at that point,
Yeah.
I would say, because the market, prices were so cheap, and there's cheap money, and then there's investors' capital that want to be in the market. So there wasn't a whole lot of, because most stuff had gone to clearing prices, most assets, so they had to like get washed out through foreclosure or bank-owned property. So you weren't really taking over anyone's mortgage because they're all over water or underwater.
Yeah. So is this the first time you're out actively trying to raise money or to bring other capital in during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I did a little bit earlier on in the remodels with one person, but in 2011 and 12 is when we raised about $5 million of equity, and then we leveraged that with some debt financing to about 15 million.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you got 50 million to play with. You play with that. You work through that. Now you're developing. And are you having fun in the 7-year period, at least with the structuring of deals, acquiring assemblages, putting that type of deal together? Like what got you up in the morning to go build 180 homes? Like what was the drive for you there?
Well, I'm not sure that was a plan, by the way, starting off. It's like you start down a path with an intention, and things kind of just build on each other. So our goal, I never thought I would be developing land and doing subdivisions. I remember talking to my father before he passed, and I was standing in the cul-de-sac of a 21-home subdivision that we had built, and we just paved the cul-de-sac. And I just remember talking to him, being like, how did I get here? Like, how did this happen again? Like, and I had some incredible people on my staff, and I had some not so incredible people probably in certain ways at my staff that helped make that happen. But yeah, so no, it was a good journey. I mean, look, the how you start and how you finish are really important, and I think. I get to drive by homes in Phoenix, Arizona for the rest of my life talking about, our team built these houses where families are living and having life experiences, laughing, crying, celebrating, sorrowing, all those things that happen. And so there's a real emotional attachment that happens when you remodel a house for someone,
Sure.
or when you build a house and create spaces. So I love that aspect of it for sure.
Yeah. So you're building homes and your dad passes away. Is that sudden, or was there kind of a run up to that? And what was the effect on you? I know you mentioned earlier you were close with dad. Like,
Yeah.
how did that shake down?
Yeah, well, that was another one of my awakenings in a short period of time. So my father passed suddenly, in the middle of the night. I talked to him one afternoon,
Wow.
and then the night he passed from heart failure. It was as I said, I didn't grow up with my father. I grew up I grew up in North Carolina. My dad was in Wisconsin.
Right.
And so shortly after we had our boys, him and my stepmom had moved out to Arizona. And I kind of look at it as like it was a chance to like grow up through my kids,
Sure.
with my father. And so he was retired and really, really living life to the fullest, just enjoying every moment of it. And not extravagantly by any means,
Sure.
but just really embracing the I would say, being happy just sitting on the porch, being happy
Right.
just watching his grandkids, being happy just, I don't think he ever wore pants one day he lived in Arizona coming from Wisconsin,
Sure.
right? So yeah, it was devastating for so many different reasons to have that sudden passing. And I remember at the time my dad died and being devastated and just my whole world being rocked out of nowhere on top of being a 3-year lawsuit and all this other stuff
Sure.
that was going on in my life. I remember I went to this yoga spin studio called the Madison. I remember talking to this girl at the time, and she said, "Hey, I'm sorry to hear about your father." And she said, "My mother's terminally ill, and we just found out that my sister's pregnant, but we feel we don't want to tell my mom because she won't make it." And I remember hearing that and saying, "Gosh, no matter what the pain, we all have pain in different ways, and would I want my father to die a slow death? Absolutely not. Would I want him to die quickly? No, I wouldn't want that either. But like there is no better when it comes to that, and we all have pain. And it just made me realize that like really brought out a lot of like empathy to be more compassionate for people, because no matter what we make it look like on the outside, we're all dealing with shit. We
Sure.
all have our bag of stuff.
Yeah.
And I would say that my compassion and empathy for humans prior to some of these awakenings probably wasn't as high as it could have. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how moments in time will define us as humans, and we can choose to ultimately make us a better human or go down a path of why me, right?
Right.
And so, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So here we are. You're done building homes.
I'm winding that up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are in the midst of a change of a economy again, and you've figured out a way to make money when the economy was good. You figured out a way to make money and crush it when the economy wasn't good, and now we're having a shift here again. And now you have a chance to reset and pivot once again, and figure out what your next steps are going to be. And what's going to be interesting now is if we listen back to this podcast in 18 months or 24 months, and you've already been anointed the crystal ball. What's coming?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm fortunate. You're fortunate to be sometimes better lucky than you are good, and for whatever the reason was, which we could go into a different time maybe, but my business about 18 months ago wasn't really working the way I would have liked it to. And for different reasons, I think in business, you kind of stay small or you get big, and then there's that middle space, which is like death. And I kind of found myself there where, my revenue was growing and my business was growing, my units were growing, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, I see all your houses, they're awesome. And that felt good. It felt good to build things. But internally, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I killing myself here? And for the sake of what? Should I just be building, 4 houses a year instead of 24 houses a year? So anyway, so I said, you know what? I woke up one day, but I looked at my overhead. In between my staff, my office, my debt carry on all my development loans, it was almost $400,000 a month. So I said to myself, so I have to make $400,000 before I see $1. I'm not quite sure this is a good idea anymore. No. And I started kind of scaling back my business almost 18 to 24 months ago. And given what's going on in the world now, I'm very fortunate that I started that path because I'm obviously almost completely out of the general contracting business, right. and focusing to be in something new now. So what's happening was your question. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm still trying to swallow having $400,000 in overhead. And thank God I don't, but also thank God you don't now as we go into this next period of time, right?
Absolutely.
So what is it, Derek? Tell us the answers.
Yeah, well, good question. I called you, right? I'm calling lots of people.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be there's already been a lot of disruption, unfortunately, in our economy throughout the world, and I think early on, my capital partner, a really good friend of mine over the years, he's a financial wizard, I would say, and he kind of tipped me off, if you will, to like, hey, I think this is going to get really bad. We're going to be okay health-wise. There are going to be people that die, but I think the economy is going to become tanked. And this was at the beginning of March.
Sure.
And so I think as far as what's happening next, what's going to happen in the market, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be disruption. I think a lot of us in Arizona have said, well, we had low supply, and we're going to go back there. And I think most people are kind of moving to like, hey, we might not just go back so quick and snap back like a rubber band. It happened fast. It's like we got fat in a day, but we're not going to get skinny in a day.
Right.
And it's going to take a while to get skinny. So I don't know, there's going to be opportunities to buy assets on sale. There's going to be opportunities to kind of probably work out some debt positions for some people. But I think at the end of the day, just like in 08, 09 for us, even though property values were dropping, there were still transactions happening, but they're at 50, 60% lower than what they were happening 2 years earlier.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that's going to happen again. But I think whoever can figure out how to kind of unlock properties that people either don't want to sell or that are in financially bad situations and bring them to market, they'll make money, but they'll be at lower price points. That's my thought.
Yeah. And what's going to drive you this next 12, 18, 24 months? Like, is it the the art of getting back into doing some deals? Is it the prospect of acquiring assets at a discount that are going to create long-term wealth for you? Is it just not having $400,000 a month and a payment that you have to stroke and enjoying kind of that freedom? Like, what's gonna drive you as you push forward?
Well, certainly trying, doing something different or doing something differently, maybe. So, 7 years is a long time for me. Development is a long, it's a long process where wholesaling and flipping, buying notes and flipping properties, you can get out in and out pretty quickly in that.
Yeah.
So I probably missed some of that action, if you will.
Yeah.
I know that I want to do it differently this time. I know I want to be more collaborative with complementary talent. People have similar skill sets, different skill sets,
Sure.
and so yeah. So I mean, I'm look. I'm sitting across the table from right now, saying, "Hey, I'm winding down a business of 7 years that went on for 7 years in an economic crash, in a pandemic, and I don't know how I'm going to make money actually."
Yeah.
So I imagine, like I am now with my kids and how I was as a kid before going on that roller coaster. Like I'm excited and scared a little bit all at the same time. So there's that nervous energy. But there's so much opportunity comes from disruption. I really believe that. You said this before that when people are stressed financially, it brings out the best. Can bring out the best in people because it can make you like pay attention, think. And sometimes when we're making money, we can get stupid. We can get comfortable, relaxed. We don't pay attention as much. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next couple of years in the creativity and the new businesses and the new technologies. So I think it's going to be some exciting times. It's going to be bumpy and it's going to be unfortunate. There's going to be some real loss and some trauma that's going to happen to people as a result of financial loss. But I'm excited to get back into the acquisition game and asset game and find some good opportunities.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as we wind this down, Derek Jarr in 20, 30 years from now, his kids are grown. He's the guy on the porch with no pants on. I'm assuming Dad was wearing some shorts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
So Derek's on the porch. He's on the swing. He's got the boys out front, and maybe more, maybe less, or maybe more kids, or maybe not. But you're sitting on the porch, and you're looking back at your life, and you're looking back at all the things, all the lives you've touched, all the money you've made, the stories you've earned, and you look back at this legacy, and that legacy is what?
Yeah, it's good. What's that show? A couple of times. Do you remember Jerry Maguire? Remember he's on Jerry Maguire and the guy interviewed him. He's like, "You're not going to get me this time, right?" He keeps crying, right? It's close. Gosh, I think I want more people to be able to say, "Hey, I learned something from meeting that guy," or I'm a better person in a certain way from meeting that guy. That guy was able to share something with me that maybe I wasn't thinking about at the time, and help me kind of form a perspective that was helpful to them and beneficial to them. I'm fascinated with the way the human mind works and the potential of it and the capacity to create and overcome so I don't know. I think hopefully that people are just saying, "Hey, I'm a little bit better for knowing that guy." Is probably something I hope that people can say.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that too. I mean, for me, it's an interesting set of circumstances how we met, and then being able to. I remember getting the office right outside of yours intentionally because I could listen in and hear your stories and hear you have conversations with the other reps that were there, conversations with outside sources, and then to watch a handful of guys leave, separate from you, and then have success. We talked about Brian. I feel good about what I've been able to accomplish, coming from you, and there's a couple other guys as well. And so to me, like I'm proud to be able to come from the tree of Derek Jarr, if you will. And it's a drive for me that I want other guys as well to kind of keep that tree going. And I'm excited for some of these young guys that I've been able to have work under me. And some of them have taken steps out of the office now, and they're trying their hand at sometimes the same thing I'm doing, sometimes a little bit different twist or a different piece. But I think you have set that for a lot of guys, and I think it's going to be interesting to see as you continue to hustle and grind and push forward, and constantly evolve. That more people have that ability to get that from you. So I appreciate you, and I thank you for sitting on this podcast and giving me your time.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Thank you.